Are you all here for the Open Diversity Festival? Great, I just want to double check. Such a beautiful idea, such a beautiful term. Thank you everyone for making this possible. How fortunate we are to have such a diverse student body, faculty, colleagues, neighbors. This is just wonderful, right? We live in a society where we see all these people from different cultures coming together, working together to create a better world. That's amazing. That's wonderful. But as always, a beautiful term can turn to a very dangerous one. Especially when we overuse it. It will eventually lose its true meaning or become a tool for hiding our weaknesses. That does happen. And as Angela Davis says, diversity may turn to a corporate strategy. And in many, many, many situations, diversity is a corporate strategy. When we only add brown or black faces to our community and we think, oh, that's it, we did diversify our community. That's where we are just using the term diversity as a cover-up. So we really need to rethink about the structure of our society and how it works in order to truly have a diverse community. And that's really needed. And I think the first steps towards that is ourselves. We have to search in ourselves and figure out who we are and what our story is and how we want to tell that story to the others. And that's why I think diversity is also a very, very, very personal concept. It's exactly like a lot of intercultural collaborations when they turn to act kind of like a petting zoo where you have all these beautiful species in one place, and it's very exciting, entertaining to see all of these different animals. And yet, you have put all these beautiful animals into cages and small boxes, and you cannot truly see how they live. You don't let them to be who they are. And that's exactly like when we use these exotic music elements from these unknown musical cultures in a musical setting. And indeed, it will make the music very entertaining, but yet, are we truly basically celebrating diversity in our work? I'm not sure if that's the case. I'm not sure. So, I think really the first thing we want to do is, again, search inside ourselves and figure out what is our intention and why and how we want to diversify our community. That reminds me of an expression we have in Farsi when I think about this quote that I read from Angela Davis, where she mentions how diversity is a corporate strategy and becomes like a cover-up for all the messes around us. And in that expression in Farsi, when something is out of our control, we don't know what's going to happen next, and we are sometimes helpless, and we are not sure what's going to come in the future. We say, Va Veila. Hele va veila, hele va veila, hele va veila, hele va veila. Yeah. I have a hard time time, a very hot time. What? I have a hard time, a very hard time accepting. What? I have a hard time, a very hard time accepting diversity as a synonym for justice. No way. No way. I have a hard time, a very hard time accepting diversity as a synonym for justice. No way. Strategy. Diversity is a corporate strategy. Diversity is a corporate strategy. It's a corporate strategy. واویلا. موج‌ها خوابیدند آرام و رام. طبل طوفان، طبل طوفان از نوا افتاده است. طبل طوفان از نوا افتاده. چشمه های شعله ور خشکیده. آبها از آسیا افتادند. آبها از آسیا افتادند. آرام آرام. طبل طوفان، طبل طوفان از نوا افتاده است. چشمه های شعله ور خشکیدند. چشمه های شعله ور خشکیدند. آبها از آسیا افتاده. در مزار آباد شهر بی‌تپش، در مزار آباد شهر بی‌تپش، وای جغدی هم نمی آید به گوش. دردمندان بی خروش و بی فغان، خشمناکان بی فغان و بی خروش. آها در سینه ها گم کرده راه. آها در سینه ها گم کرده راه. مرغکان سرشان به زیر بادها، در سکوت جاودان، در سکوت جاودان مدفون شده است. هرچه قوقا بود و قید و قالها، هرچه قوقا بود و قید و قالها. موجها خوابیدند آرام و رام. طبل طوفان از نوا افتاده است. چشمه های شعله ور خشکیدند. آبها از آسیا افتادند. دارها برچیده خونها شستند. دارها برچیده خونها شستند. خانه خالی بود و خوان بی آب و نان. وانچه بود آش دهنسوزی نبود. وانچه بود آش دهنسوزی نبود. همه گنج ها زیر دامن نهد. همه گنج ها زیر دامن نهد. بکوشند و کوشش به دشمن دهند. بگیتی کسی را نماند وفا. بگیتی کسی را نماند وفا. زبان روانها شود پر جفا. بریزد خون از پی خواسته. بریزد خون از پی خواسته. شود روزگار بد آراسته. زیان کسان از پی سود خویش، زیان کسان از پی سود خویش بجویند و دین اندر آرد پیش. زیان کسان از پی سود خویش بجویند و دین اندر آرد پیش. The city is a swamp. The city is a swamp. There is absolute silence. Absolute silence. No sound, nor voice. Absolute silence. It's breathless, absolute silence. شهر است چو مردار، شهر است چو مردار، نفس بسته صدا گم. شهر است چو مردار، نفس بسته صدا. خاموشی محض است، خاموشی محض است، نه آواز نه ترنم.
سحری سر کشد از دور، نه پنجره‌ای تا که کند صبح تبسم. دستی نزد غیب آید با حکم رهایی، بر ما نببخشاید یزدان ترحم، بر ما نببخشاید یزدان ترحم. شهر است چو مردار، شهر است چو مردار،
عاشقی پیداست زاری دل، عاشقی پیداست زاری دل، نیست بیماری چو بیماری دل. هرچه گویم عشق را شرح و بیان چون به عشق آیم چون به عشق آیم خجل باشد چون قلم اندر نوشتن می شتافت چون قلم اندر نوشتن می شتافت چون به عشق آمد قلم بر خود شکافت چون به عشق آمد قلم بر خود شکافت. تو داری صنما قدر تو باری صنما ما همه پا بسته تو شیر شکاری صنما ذره به ذره بر تو سجده کنان بر در تو چاکر و یاریگر تو آه چه یاری صنما دلبر بی کینه ما شمع دل سینه ما درد و جهان درد و سرا کار تو داری صنما تو داری صنما قدر تو باری صنما ما همه پا بسته تو شیر شکاری صنما روز مرا دیدن تو شب غم ببریدن تو از تو شبم روز شود همچون نهاری صنما خواه شب و خواه سحر نیستم از هر دو خبر چیست خبر چیست خبر روز شماری صنما جسم مرا خاک کنی، جسم مرا خاک کنی، خاک مرا خاک کنی، جسم مرا خاک کنی، خاک مرا خاک کنی، باز مرا نقش کنی، باز مرا نقش کنی، ماه گذاری صنما، ماه گذاری صنما، ماه گذاری صنما. کار تو داری صنما، قدر تو باری صنما، ما همه پا بسته تو، شیر شکاری صنما، ذره به ذره بر تو، سجده کنان بر در تو، چاکر و یاریگر تو، آه چه یاری صنما. منبر بیکینه ما، شمع دل سینه ما، درد و جهان درد و سرا، کار تو داری صنما.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joey Sellers. I'm the Director of Jazz Studies here at Saddleback College, and I teach a couple of other classes as well. I'm delighted to be here with my colleague and dear friend Hassan Abedini, whose music you just heard. Unfortunately, we were recording this interview before that concert has been taped, so I have not seen the music, but we will have Hassan approach some of that. Welcome, Hassan.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching the concert, and thank you very much for having me, Joey. Thank you.
Of course. This is part of our Saddleback Arts project about diversity and how diversity in the arts is very important. And we're very excited about this program, and I'm delighted to be asked to interview a few of the participants. I first met Hassan when he was a student here at Saddleback, and I thought we would start, Hassan, by just talking about your journey here, what age you were when you came to the country, and your experiences at Saddleback, and then we'll talk about where you went after that.
Sure. Thank you. First, let me thank everyone, Joey, Scott, for making this possible. It's indeed a wonderful festival and a great step towards diversifying our program here in arts and music at Saddleback, and also everyone who helped technically with having this festival. So my name is Hassan Abedini, and I was born in Tehran, in Iran, the capital of Iran, in 1992. And then I was partly studying in Iran and in Armenia for 3 years and I started there in Armenia when I was 13. And then when I was 17, almost 18, I received my green card and I moved to the US. And because my uncle family was actually living here in Mission Viejo, I moved here, and I was lucky to attend Saddleback College, where I studied first English, because my English was just terrible when I arrived. So I started learning English here at Saddleback College, and indeed I had a great time as a student there. And I also started taking, of course, music classes with actually Joey. So it was a wonderful experience. And then I moved on, went to UCSD, and now I'm almost finishing up my PhD at UC Irvine. And I'm delighted to be back at Saddleback College now as one of the faculty members. And it's just I feel like I am back at home, because Saddleback was the first place I found friends, and I found, I started basically creating a new path for myself in the US. So it's just wonderful to be back here.
And we love having you back. You know, our administration, our faculty, our staff, our entire community is working very hard to work on equity and diversity here at Saddleback College. Could you speak to your experiences here when you were a student, Hassan?
Definitely. So when I actually started taking classes at Saddleback again, my English was terrible. So I was placed in ESL classes, English as second language, in the first intermediate classes, kind of intermediate one. That's what they used to call it. I don't know what they call it now, but and then I started taking classes like in music department, and I never felt, even though my English was not that well, I never felt behind or outside of the box. I was always included, and I found friends who were native English speakers, and they were very kind to me. All the faculties in all the areas, actually, they were very supportive of students like me, who were coming from different countries. And we have actually a lot of, I'm sure we have a lot of students, I don't know the number on top of my head, but we have a lot of students who are not native English speakers, and who are coming from different cultures, and they have no idea about what American culture is. They have just heard some stories probably about it, but they don't know what this culture really is, and how does it function, and how the society functions. And I think Saddleback has been very, it's one of the most, I should say, inspiring programs, educational programs and spaces for people from different colors to get into this culture and this society, and have a very smooth transition. And that's definitely incredible. And I was just lucky to have this chance to start my journey in US from Saddleback.
Beautiful. And could you speak to some of your influences initially, that, and what would you want the listeners from this concert to get from your music?
So in this concert, uh, we so Sibarg Ensemble, the ensemble that we just performed with, was formed back in Iran. So I formed Sibarg Ensemble in 2008. So it's more than 13 years. I started the ensemble with the aim of trying to bring different people with different backgrounds together and celebrate our diversity, celebrate our differences. And that was really the goal for me when I started the ensemble back in Iran. And I tried to continue this when I moved to the US. So I reformed the ensemble, and this is why I have been playing with various musicians. And every time I have a chance to work with a new musician, I'm always happy to do so. And in this performance, especially, we played with my friends from different. Actually, they're living now in different part of the country. Kyle Model, who plays bass, lives now in Florida. And Josh Charney, who plays the keys, and two of the pieces were actually composed by him. He lives now in San Jose and Bay Area. And Sarah, who is on on oud, she lives in the Bay Area, but she's an old friend of mine who also went to the Tehran Conservatory, and I know her for a long time now. And Corey Fogel, who lives in Los Angeles, joined us for this performance. And we all have come from different backgrounds, but one thing that brings us together is our interest in performing with people from diverse backgrounds. And we try to we don't really compose the pieces, so the pieces are not fully notated, and the pieces have a lot of room for the musicians to participate as musicians, not only as performers. So they're not interpreting what I have written or Josh has written, but it's kind of a collaborative environment where we put in our backgrounds into the mix and create something at least we try to create something meaningful.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to me. I've heard the ensemble on recording, of course, and one performance many years ago, I think, when you were at University of San Diego. you know, in my world, in the jazz world, we deal with improvisatory nature coming from Black America. But in Persian music, with the concept of radif, with those systems in place, there's a great deal of improvisation too. And in that part of the world, northern India as well, there's a lot of improvisation. I think it's beautiful the way those two things come together in Sibarg. Is that how you pronounce that?
Sibarg, yes, indeed.
Sibarg. And what does that mean, Hassan?
Yes, Seaberg, actually, great question. I'm glad you asked. So Seaberg, actually, I'm terrible at naming things, actually. First, I want to start with this.
Okay.
When I was young, again, I started Seaberg when I was only, 16 or 15 and 16. And Seaberg means, in Farsi, C means 30, just number 30, and Berg means leaf, just the leaf of tree. So Seaberg, I named it Seaberg because, so 30 leaves, because we really thought we are going to introduce new concepts in music and kind of new sounds and new sonic worlds. And that's why we call it 30 leaves, and leaves is like about life, and that's why I came up with this name, and still I'm carrying that name because I feel like now it's nostalgia to me. And yes, definitely about the improvisation part, although the way that we approach improvisation in Iranian classical music is very different from the way that we approach it in jazz or African American music. I think that is a really at the common ground where we are able to bring our differences together and create a platform where then we can start collaborating without sacrificing our cultural and our sonic worlds. So that's really the most interesting part. But yeah, it's indeed for example, in blues we have these blue notes which are not coming from equal temperament, which can be very similar to the way that we have unequal temperament and unequal intervals that doesn't exist on the keyboard, for example, and we perform it in classical Persian music. So those are really interesting intersections where we see like these musics come together, and I think it's because these musics are musics that are coming from nature. Of course, all the music does, but these musics has been still trying to keep their distance from the improvements that has happened in terms of especially the sonic world and in terms of the intervallic relations that are used in this type of music. Of course, it has been developed throughout the history and has changed, but still specifically about the details and how intervals work in these two musics. I think that's very interesting, and that's a factor that we definitely are using when creating music with Seaberg.
Right. So that the influence of that Persian culture colors the manner in which you are composing and improvising, correct?
Yes, exactly. So it's partly composed, partly improvised, and uh, uh, that is, I think, indeed, definitely a common ground for us to come together.
Hassan, what do you think we should be doing as arts educators to encourage diversity in our teaching and in our communities?
That's as I told you before. This is a very deep question, and it can be actually very personal. I think although the term diversity and the idea is can be a very general idea, and it's used in the society, and it has been actually overused, I would say sometimes. Um, it is very personal, and it becomes very, very personal. One thing I think as a faculty member here at Saddleback, and just as a person, um, is that since diversity is a very personal term, I always think when I'm creating my syllabus or when I'm thinking about how I'm going to teach or basically structure a course, I always think about where and when am I going to encourage the students who are taking this class to go one step back and think about who they are and what they really want. And I think that's really the first step that we should take towards embedding the idea of encouraging diversity and encouraging the students to think about what it really means. It's really the first step is this, trying to, you know, creating a kind of the atmosphere in the classes that we have where the students um, are encouraged and are pushed actually a little bit to start thinking about who they are and what they want, where they come from. Indeed, we all, it doesn't matter what color of the skin we have, doesn't matter what nationality we have. Uh, we have to start, we come from different cultural backgrounds, we come from different, you know, historic backgrounds. And I think something that is sometimes missing, not always, but sometimes missing in educational system and in classes that students take in college and university, and even in, you know, high school and K to 12 in general, is the way that I think we definitely need to uh, open a space in which they can start thinking about who they are, they really are. And we kind of encourage them to think about themselves and search into themselves and figure out what they like, who they are. And that's really the first step that we should take. So that's why every time I come up with my syllabus and the schedule of classes, I go back and review quickly as if I'm the student in class. And I think about, okay, where in this schedule am I going to be encouraged to go back and think about myself and what I want really? Because, you know, I think especially with music and arts, traditions, we are teaching the students the traditions, and traditions uh, are sort of, they generate the material for education, of course, but at the same time, the traditions are kind of the roots, right? So at the end, we want to grow. We are this plant that the traditions are the roots for us, and we grow and we want to have fruits. And that fruit shouldn't be similar to the roots, right? It should be something different and something new. And that only happens when we start thinking about who we are and what we want. So it becomes very, very personal in that sense.
Yeah, excellent point. You know, it's interesting. There's been an attempt in this country and, of course, in our community to be more aware. As you know, most of us are aware historically the United States has had a somewhat troubled past, it's particularly with what the term, you know, whether it's become a buzzword, not BIPOC, which means black, indigenous people, and people of color, three distinct categories. Do you think that as an artist, there are barriers for people uh, in that uh, category of black, indigenous, and people of color that need to be overcome? And have you dealt with any personal ones, Hassan?
Yes, definitely it is. And definitely there are a lot of barriers. And I was thinking about the education, especially the higher education in the US. And when you look at the programs, you see so many PhD music programs around the US. And there are a lot of schools who are offering PhD studies. So where, you know, you get 5 years, 6 years of, intensive research on a specific topic. But then when you look at how many PhD programs are specifically focused on jazz and African American music, which, you know, has been developed in this country, uh, the number is very low. There are not so many PhD programs offered in the US, which indeed is a problem, and it's very unfortunate. So just looking at that, you will realize how much we have to do and how much work is to do in order to address these issues. And indeed, if that's the case, and we have very few programs in jazz studies, especially in the PhD level, you can realize how many people are kind of trained to start teaching. Although, you know, a lot of people are teaching already, and you don't have to have that training, but that will be definitely a very great place for a lot of musicians to learn how to teach and how to deal with these issues of diversity, to teach courses that has not been taught as much, and all that in an academic setting where everything, you want to have everything organized because you want to serve a very diverse group of people. But then um, I think the other issue here is that we tend to have all of these diversify ideas as sort of I would call it, I know it's harsh, but I would call it like a petting zoo. So if we look at this, we have all these great and exotic elements of different sort of musics from different cultures, but we are not really getting deep into them, and we are using them more as entertainments. And I think that that's a real issue that we should start thinking about, and we should start trying to address.
The thing is, it's interesting because the purpose of this series of diversity in the arts is extremely important to us, and you're right. It can fall into, I like the term petting zoo, where you're just sort of getting on the surface of it. And one of our goals is to try to get below the surface in this arts program, this festival of diversity. Let's veer off the intellectual track for a minute and just tell us a little bit about some of the music.
Oh yes, definitely. That I think that's the most interesting part, definitely. So the music that you heard. So in general, my focus and what I got from classical Iranian music is how deeply poetry is involved with the music and how deeply poetry is rooted into the music. Indeed, the classical Iranian music has been centered around actually delivering classical Iranian poetry. And so I use that idea in the music, and all of the music that you hear, that's why most of them have vocals, of course, not only because I am a vocalist, but because also the idea of poetry and delivering the poetry is really important in classical Iranian music culture. So the pieces that you heard, actually the very last piece is a piece based on a poem by Rumi, which is about love. But the first three pieces were based on different poetries. For example, the very first piece starts actually with it was a composition based on an Angela Davis quote. And I wrote that piece specifically because I was researching about the idea of diversity in music, and that's why I was fascinated with that quote, and I started writing that piece. And we have a lot of, as I mentioned, improvisations within the music. So most of the melodies that you are hearing are improvised, except the ones that we all come together and play one common theme or one common melodic idea and harmonic structure. Other than that, even the singing parts are improvised, and every time can change based on the feeling. And it's a very, very interesting and challenging experience to perform from home with different people without knowing what they are doing, and just sending a lot of tracks back and forth. So I sing, and then Sarah played on top of that singing, and then we sent it to Josh to play keyboard on it, and then I decided, oh, I have to change this part. So I sang again on top of it, and recording it with video, that even makes it harder. And but it was a very interesting challenge, and to kind of mix all these together and create this concert, which was very interesting. So that was a different feeling than us being on the stage, performing at the same time, getting a feel from the audience. But I always try to imagine having at least I could imagine my students from my harmony class and musicianship class watching this. So I was thinking, what would they feel? And how can I convey the messages I have through this music? So I hope that message was delivered well.
It's always awkward for those of us performing to an empty hall or an empty bedroom. And we've done a couple things here for the Saddleback Arts Live concert with the jazz faculty and other groups with our students. And it's a strange feeling when you finish with the powerhouse thing and it's like crickets, but we have to just imagine the audience there. But we do miss feeding off the energy, from the audience. Hassan, what would you say you'd like our students and our community to take away from your music?
So I try to draw my ideas, my musical ideas from the cultures that I have been involved with, which is definitely classical Iranian music, Western classical music, and contemporary music, as well as jazz and African American music. And I really hope that I could introduce a new sonic world to the audience who were listening to our uh, concert. And I hope that, they start thinking about how much more music is out there and how much more is for them to learn about and dig into. So I would say I hope that this performance and our concert encourage them to think more outside of this box that we are in, because usually we are in the box no matter how hard we try to go and search for new ideas. So I hope that that encouragement stays with them for a little while, and encourage them to kind of go for searching more and listening to more different kind of musics. The topics here, definitely the new topic would be here in classical Persian music, because there is a whole new and fresh and different sonic world in that music that they can discover, and maybe they get inspired by and start creating new art forms.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's a wonderful way for us to end this interview, because that's what we're after. And we appreciate everyone tuning in to watch. Hassan Abedini, thank you so much for your music and for your time in this interview. We're glad to welcome you back to the warm, embracing arms of Saddleback College, and glad that you're teaching here with us and sharing this beautiful music from Cyborg with us. Seaborg, sorry. Cyborg is a different thing. That's a Martian or something, right? All right. Appreciate you very much, Hassam. And we'll look forward to seeing you around campus when we can.
Yes, thank you very much, Joy, for this wonderful interview and this time. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this performance and this short interview. Thank you.
Thank you all for watching our Festival of Diversity in the Arts. Joey Seller signing off. Thank you again, Hassam. Bye bye.